But there was one family who owned a house, or owned several buildings. It wasn't a house, because there were a lot of warehouses down there. Basically at 22nd and Blake, and they refused to sell. So they figured we'll eventually get this worked out, but the builders, the construction, had to work from the outfield in and hope that it meets.
So when I was a kid, my old man would take me to the Bears game. Bears, you say? Yeah, they were the minor league team before the Zephyrs. The Zephyrs, you say? No, they were the baseball team before the Rockies. And who knows all about this, but you might have seen her before. Kyle Dyer, thank you.
Hey, John, how are you?
So how did you get the gig to do this documentary on the making of the Rockies?
So the making of the Rockies is all about the team behind the team.
Yeah.
The people within this community, not only in Denver, outside of Denver, who worked really hard to convince Major League Baseball that this area of the country, this city needed a Major League Baseball team. After the many years with the Bears and the Zephyrs, there was a thirst to be Major League. Two of the people who kind of started all that for 30 years, as long as the Rockies have been around, have been wanting to put this story, bring it to life. So we connected, and it was, a great fit for both of us. For
people who want to see it, just let's not hold it off. You can see it at the Rockies site.
Rockies.com, Rockies YouTube, and 9 News Plus as well. They are streaming the film because 9 News helped us with this fabulous old archival footage with the big hair from the early 90s. It's great.
All right, first, it can't be 30 years. It cannot be 30 years. I am not that old. Because it happened like 5 years ago that the Rockies came to town. Because I remember that opening game. I remember it at Mile High. It cannot be 30 years. Your arithmetic, maybe it's because you're a girl, but your arithmetic is off.
Okay, April of 1993 was that game at Mile High Stadium when more than the old Mile High, when more than 80,000 people were in attendance. The Rockies literally brought in those metal stands, that would never be allowed today to allow for that many people to fill that stadium. It's a record that will never be beat because there's no stadium that has seating for 80,000 people for a baseball game.
So for those who don't remember, and you might not have been here at the time, but the old Mile High Stadium, the east stands were on coasters. And so when the Bears would play, they would take 15 minutes and move this gigantic section of bleachers out to make an outfield. And it was a terrible place to watch a game because it's not built for long-term sitting and looking at home plate, where all the seats are kind of, no, it's made to look at the 50-yard line. And so it was a bad place to watch baseball. But fortunately, there's only like 2,000 people at any game.
Yeah, but because it was such a bad place to watch baseball, that's why Major League forever was like, yeah, no way, Denver. Why would we give you a team if your minor league team's playing in a baseball stadium? You've been through 2 recessions with the oil bust in the 80s. Why would we consider Denver for expanding a team?
Because it's a sports-crazed town. And
we convinced them that.
All right, let me throw some things at you and tell me if that sounded right.
Okay.
So when it looked like we were getting a team, some of us who watched baseball, and my father would always take me to the Bears games or the Zephyrs games, and it was amazing because for $3 on a Wednesday afternoon, you'd get a parking spot, a beer, a hot dog, and a AAA team game. And it was just so wonderful out in the sun. It was just so light and breezy and easy, unlike any major league sport. And when it looked like the Rockies were coming, there were a bunch of baseball, how to put it, snobs. Like, oh, no. These people in Colorado, these people in Denver don't understand baseball. It's not going to sell here. It won't work here. Yeah, they'll like it for a little while, but it's not a baseball town. This is a football town. And, how to put it, we're not classy enough for baseball.
Yes, but if it wasn't just the town or the state, I mean, think about it. There was an entire time zone that had no major league team. We went from Kansas City to Los Angeles with no team, right? Who did you root for as a kid? What major league team did you like?
Well, he had to do it for the Yankees because my father was raised in the Bronx.
Okay.
He should have been a Dodgers fan, but he was a Yankees fan, so we would do that. The town was all split.
People were thirsty for it. And a lot of people I talked to who went to Bears games with their parents, they remember as kids people talking about it, way back when.
When are we going to get a team?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let me ask you about that part. When the Bears changed their names to the Zephyrs, which I think is a silly name, I remember the thought being, well, Denver is going to get a major league team. They'll be called the Denver Bears. And that's why we're making room by taking this name away and giving you the Zephyrs for a couple of years while we do the deal for the Denver Bears. Is my memory completely off on that?
I don't know about the Bears thing, but when John DeCue bought the Bears, he changed the name to the Zephyrs. And of course, we have the California Zephyr that comes through. I know you don't like that name.
Well, the Zephyr is also a wind. So it's a Zephyr. It's a type of wind that comes down off the mountains. And it's the Zephyrs. Oh, we're the Bears.
The main reason he did that, to get into major league meetings, to get into all these events where major league owners are, right?
He changed the name to do that?
No, he bought the team to really strategize and to position Denver in a place where, we can get in and talk to people.
What did he pay for the team? Do you know?
For the Bears, I'm not sure. I don't know what he was.
Because there was a time you could buy a minor league team for like $100,000 or something.
I have no idea. I didn't ask him that.
And so was the plan buy the Zephyrs so that we can sell the concept to Major League?
Yeah. And so they would even go to meetings. And remember back in the day when you went to a hotel like the USA Today was outside your door every morning? They brought a printing press. Yeah, they brought a printing press down to these major league meetings and made a paper called the Daily Zephyr. And it was all about baseball news and about Denver. So when those major league owners would open up their door in the morning, they'd see the Daily Zephyr. It was a way just to get the Denver name out. And where they made lots of great contacts and were, rubbing elbows with everybody. Again, we love Denver, but you don't have a stadium.
So they really had to lobby Major League Baseball.
Oh, yes.
So why wouldn't Major League Baseball want to put a team somewhere in the Midwest or West? It just seemed like a no-brainer place for an expansion team. You would think it would be the other way around, that Major League Baseball would be, hey, Denver, anybody interested in? So
first they had to have an expansion. So there were a lot of senatorial hearings.
That's right, it's a monopoly.
Senator Tim Wirth, we interviewed him. He was saying when he was reelected in 86, or I think it was 86, he's thinking, okay, what's going to be a good issue? Oh, they want baseball here. So he told a great story how all the other senators from cities that wanted teams, they made up the Senate task force on the expansion of Major League Baseball. He said, we had no authority about that, but we made the paper with the seal and everybody's name on the left side, and they had these hearings, and they really met with Ubroth, then Ubroth was let go. And then they kept going through the different major league, commissioners saying, come on. And then finally, there were a lot of meetings and said, okay, Miami and Denver are in the running. If we expand, those are going to be the two cities that will get it. But still, it wasn't definite. But by voters here saying, yes, we'll build a new stadium if we get a team, Major League was like, oh, Denver, okay. That's what got their attention.
Who were the other expansion teams?
It was Miami that year.
And then Diamondbacks came later.
They were later, I think so.
All right, let's talk about the stadium.
Okay.
Because as somebody who's always not crazy about government-funded stadiums, first stadium, I'm trying to remember, was Coors before the new Mile High? I think it was. All
yes.
Right. And this was a big deal. I don't think it was called Coors Field at the time, but the idea of putting a stadium there was a gigantic public works promise. And it was quite controversial because a lot of us were saying government shouldn't be buying playthings for private businesses. If Major League Baseball wants to have this, Major League Baseball should build their own stadium, which is becoming almost not done. What was the vote? I'm trying to remember when it was and how it passed.
Okay, first I had to go through the legislature, right, to get it before us voters in the 6-county metro area. And it was not supposed to pass in the legislature because there were a lot of fiscal conservatives who said a tax is a tax is a tax. Why are we going to make people tax themselves to pay for this? But it passed. So then it went before the 6-county metro area, was not supposed to pass. Voters in Denver and Adams County said no, but there was enough support in the other 4 surrounding counties, 54 to 46% it passed in a primary election in August of 91.
That sounds about
90.
Yeah, 90. And so the tax, was it a penny a dollar sales tax?
Right, that was the slogan. It'll be a penny on every $10.
Yeah, all right, so it was 1/10 of a cent. And it was a debt package. And so we're going into debt to buy this thing. I was skeptical. When did they break ground on Coors Field?
October of 92. And then Coors Field was ready in 95.
I remember that.
And then the tax, the bond was paid off in 8 years, much faster than they expected. So then that's when
they expanded the
tax. They went, hey, legislature, can you just change the word from baseball to football? Put it before voters. Voters said yes. And that's how we got the new Mile High, whatever it was called then.
Was it Invesco Field back then?
So with one bill, they got 2 stadiums.
All right.
Okay.
Let me say officially, for the record, public financing of any public stadium is wrong, terrible, and everyone's going to hell for doing it. That being said, I believe Coors Field is the most gorgeous baseball park in the country. Now, I haven't been to all of them, and I haven't seen all of them, but I've been to enough of them that it somehow is old and new at the same time. It is a timeless park. Am I wrong on that?
It's beautiful. There was one story that we couldn't, there were so many stories we could not get into that 58-minute with the time for the film. But, the Union Pacific owned that land at the time primarily, and there were some other owners as well. They were actually looking at 3 sites. One where the ball arena is, also where the football stadium is, and then this one downtown in Lodo, which was mostly Union Pacific. That was
those were the 3 sites.
Yeah, that was the cheapest land, so they went with that. But there was one family who owned a house, or owned several buildings. It wasn't a house, because there were a lot of warehouses down there. Basically at 22nd and Blake, and they refused to sell. So they figured we'll eventually get this worked out. But the builders, the construction, had to work from the outfield in and hope that it meets. By the time they got here, the deal had been done. They got the land. It was all fine. But can you imagine?
So they started
building
on faith.
from the outfield.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
It is one last comment on this. So with one tax, 2 stadiums. One stadium is gorgeous and timeless and will be there in 100 years. I'm convinced. It's just that beautiful. The other one will be knocked down 3 seconds after the last payment is made, in 20 years, whenever it is. It is a disposable football stadium so that the next stadium can go up. It is not timeless. So Coors Field, I don't know who the architects were. I don't know who made the design, but they made it perfect.
There were many different committees, Colorado Stadium District, Denver Sports Commission, Baseball Commission, there were a lot. And they toured, and they actually went to Baltimore. And, everyone loves Baltimore Camden Yards. But they said the one mistake we did was when you go get a beer, you're standing in line looking at the concession stand. If we could have only opened it up so you could still be in line and look behind you and watch the game. Now people are coming here and seeing how do we make our stadium to be like Coors Field. But I will tell you, since all the people I've talked to, they started doing maintenance on that building like the first month. The maintenance on Coors Field is constant. And I can tell you, because I shot a lot of my interviews for when Colorado went Major League in Coors Field outside, there's a lot going on there that the noise we could hear, they're constantly making it pretty and clean.
Talk to me about Dinger.
Okay.
All right, now, if I understand this mascot, which this is the problem. Again, I will tell you, as I told you off air, all sports teams should be named after animals that can kill you.
A triceratops could kill you.
All right, that would be a great name. But they're not the Triceratops.
But that's what he
They're
is.
the Rockies. So I have a couple questions. Why wasn't it the Denver Rockies? Was that a...
I wasn't here then, don't know.
So obviously, I
It
think
was
they were
decided.
They were trying to widen the...
Why was it not? I see.
Yeah.
Why wasn't Denver? Because it's Colorado.
They wanted to make it a
Colorado
a
Rockies.
whole Western
I see what you're
team.
saying. Yes.
Yeah. And then they found, did they not, a dinosaur bone when they were digging this up? Is that where Dinger, the dinosaur, came from?
Yes.
All right.
So Ray Baker, who was very involved with building the stadium and overseeing it, he said he remembers where he was standing in his house when he got a phone call one night at 10:30, and they said, "We found some bones."
They said, the mafia?
And there were lots of ups and downs all around with this whole thing, getting the initiative passed the legislature, and then before voters, we lost the owner who was the original owner, then we lost him and had to find a new owner. So he says, at this point, when I hear there are bones, I'm thinking we found Jimmy Hoffa.
Right.
Well, it was dinosaur bones. And you would think that something like that would slow down production of construction. It was only a 2-week delay. So they kept going. But it's very funny because the Dinger, the bones, are over of the original Triceratops are at the Museum of Nature and Science. And it's so cool to go behind the scenes. They have just these rooms of all these skeletal great things. And I saw this huge Triceratops. And then they opened this cabinet, and in a box that's like the size of an iPhone box are 2 very small rib bones. The fact that some construction worker saw those 2 bones and said, wait, we got to check this out. It's amazing.
So the bones they found could fit into a small box?
In an iPhone box.
So they didn't find a whole Triceratops.
No.
They just found a couple little bones.
Yes, but they could tell it was from a rib. And apparently that happens a lot of construction sites here in the Front Range. This was dinosaur heaven back in the day.
And is that why we have Dinger?
That's why we have Dinger.
Because of those 2 little bones?
Oh, yes.
Oh, that is pretty fun.
Yes.
That is really fun. Talk to me about the ownership.
Okay.
So who owned the Bears? Who owned the Zephyrs? And why don't the same folks own the Rockies?
Okay.
Who? So
All right.
Who bought the Zephyrs?
Well, let me start back.
Yeah.
Back. So baseball started in the 1860s in Denver. They weren't the Bears just yet. The first baseball stadium was right across from the state capitol, like where the city and county building is.
No.
And then there was one down
Did
by
you find pictures of that?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's
An
gorgeous.
illustration, and then there was one that was over by Denver Health, and then Merchant Park, where the Bears originally played, was down by the Design Center on I-25
What is Merchant
Broadway.
Park?
That was where the Bears began. And the owner at the time, the Howsam family, said, we need a better stadium. So they looked across at a junkyard and said, oh, that would be a great place for our baseball stadium, which was the site of Mile High, right? So they built Bears Stadium in the 60s across the way where you used to go, or maybe it was a little bit earlier. The Broncos, though, moved in 1968. And when that happened, people kind of thought of it, oh, it's not really Bears Stadium anymore, it's Broncos Stadium.
Let me kick this back to you because you're blowing my mind.
Okay.
As a longtime Coloradan. So Mile High wasn't Mile High Broncos country. Mile High was Bears Stadium. It was a baseball field.
Yes, and then the Broncos
when the
came.
Broncos came in the 60s, and because I think the Broncos came in 64. I don't know where they played.
And then the stadium then.
And then they moved into the Bears Stadium.
Yeah.
And then did that evolve? Was it the exact same building that then grew into Mile High, or did
What
they
we
knock
knew,
it?
what was imploded, yeah.
Did they blow it all up and build a whole new Mile High?
No. What we knew back in the 90s before it was gone, that was the stadium.
That was the same as Bears Stadium?
Yeah, but they kept building it bigger because the Howsams wanted to make it, before the Broncos came, we need to really make this a great stadium. So they kept building certain areas to make it a bigger baseball stadium. The Yankees used to come through here. We were a farm team for the Yankees. So a lot of the people I interviewed said, oh my gosh, I remember coming and seeing, all these great players that I idolized from afar. But yeah, so that was another reason when the Broncos kind of took over the stadium. Again, it was theirs, and we were playing in their stadium.
So AAA is the reason Mile High began. The Broncos come in and homesteaded it. They just came in and squatted, and now it was theirs. All right, and then who? Again, you told me who bought the Bears?
A man named John DeCue
Right.
bought the Bears and named them the Zephyrs, and then that's when things started really speeding up to get a team here.
What changed in ownership? When did they get the okay, and how did it get to the current ownership?
Once we passed the stadium tax, the six-county metro area in August of '90, Governor Romer said, we need a new owner. We need an owner. Now, there was talk about how a lot of the various cable giants that are centered in Colorado would come together. Oh, we'll finance a team. We'll be the main owners of a team. But then
guys like Bill Daniels and others, were they the ones who were looking to?
And they're just all the Magnus and the C's and all that. But then Major League Baseball said, well, Ted Turner might not like that. Remember? Because he was at the Braves and it was on all the time on TNT. Remember?
Yeah.
So that idea was scrapped. But in August, after they, like weeks after.
Wait. Who scrapped that idea?
Because Major League Baseball said that'll never go. The owners of all the Major League teams will never.
I think a lot of people don't understand that Colorado was a hub for the cable industry. Mm-hmm. Magnus, Bill Daniels, these people were the cowboys.
Malone.
They were the cowboys of cable, and they were here in Colorado.
Yeah.
So they were interested, but that would anger one of the other owners.
So, we need to find somebody. So Governor Romer.
What about DeCue?
No, he didn't. What I was told, he wasn't in the running to be an owner. It cost a lot of money and he would have a fraction of it. So they needed someone with a lot of money. And there were a lot of people in Colorado who had money, but they kind of questioned, is this really going to work?
Yeah.
Okay, so Governor Romer, he said he had no really power to do this. He said, you know what? In 2 weeks, we're going to have a meeting at the downtown Weston. If you're interested in owning a part or all of this team, come to this meeting and we're going to talk. He came and told everybody, this is what we need you to do. You have 2 weeks to form your groups, get your plans together. We're going to meet back here. So he came back, and the person that they decided, who gave 30 of the $95 million, it was a group of people, but the main person's name was Mickey Monis, and he owned like Farmore, which was a pharmaceutical chain in the Midwest. Okay, so we had an owner, but Coors was involved. They signed off a $30 million in perpetuity naming rights deal. That's a deal, right? Linda Alvarado was involved as a minority owner. The Rocky KOA were minority owners. Beverage, there were a lot of minority owners, right? And Charlie Montfort was in there. Jerry McMorris was in there as minority owners. So here we are going along. We got this plan. Major League Baseball says, okay, you got a place, you got owners, you got a team. 100 days or so before that first game in 1993, the owner, Mickey Monis, the primary owner, was indicted on over 100 charges of fraud and embezzlement. So we had to find a new owner. You didn't know that story?
No, I didn't know that story. How did I not know this story?
So what do? Major League's going to be like, what is going on? So Jerry McMorris and Charlie Montfort stood up, and they had a group that all came together and were the primary owners. An attorney in town, Paul Jacobs, was very instrumental in kind of keeping the peace and making it all happen, basically buying the shares of Monis for like 24 hours until the deal could go through. Otherwise, we probably would have lost the team to another city. So it was,
It was that touch and go.
So our current Montfort owner, Dick, was not involved as a secondary owner. He wasn't interested. But when Jerry left and Charlie wasn't as involved, he came in and bought the shares, and now he is the main owner. So I guess that they originally went to his father and said, Roy Romer was good friends with his father, Mr. Montfort Sr., and said, would you be interested? He's like, no, I don't think so, but talk to my boys. So, I mean, there were a lot of people that thought it would be a great idea, but we're just not sure, like you weren't.
Right. It
was a new thing.
Well, also, as a creature of habit as a kid, I loved the Bears. I loved the Zephyrs. And the new team, the crowds, the cost, the this, instead of the sweet small team AAA experience.
Something I learned, though, here's a tip for you if you want to save some money.
Yeah.
From batting practice to the first pitch, $3 beers on the party deck at Coors Field.
What are we doing here?
Right? Now, I don't know if it'll go up this coming season. You never know. But $3 beers, and they're like big-sized beers.
The ownership hasn't changed since then.
No, Dick Mumford was not the original owner of the team, but he came in years later and it stayed. Yeah.
Denver is so baseball crazy that the complaint is too many people go. Even when they have a lousy season, people still go to the games. So it's a cash maker for the owners, but they don't have to put a whole lot of money into everything else compared to other teams because the town loves the game so much. Were the owners surprised by the reaction?
What, that evolved?
That Denver actually bought their product. Because other teams...
Yes, and I will say the players from those first many years, we interviewed Eric Young in the documentary and also Vinny, but they could feel and were shocked at how excited people were, that players wanted to put on a show every night just as thank you, because they were so overwhelmed by the love and the turnout. And I still think to this day, people come to the games and they may be from other teams. You hear that if the Cubs are here But
not every sports team makes it here.
Right.
We have had XFL teams.
That's true.
We have had other weird sports that aren't mainstream, sports. They come and go, whatever the soccer team is, and others. Some of them last very long. The name Rockies was also a failed name because it was the Colorado Rockies, which was a hockey team that played at McNichols Arena. And so now this is our second Colorado Rockies. And
30 years later, though, it's still going.
It's still going, unlike
31.
the other Rockies. So
why?
There are so many teams and so many sports that sound good, but they can't make a go of it here. This, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, they've all done stellar here.
And I think why the Rockies are the team that we love, no matter win or lose, is for what you said at the top of the show. How you remember going to a game with your dad.
Yep.
My brother used to take me to Orioles games. I still remember that for as little as I was.
It is America's game for a reason.
And that's why I think people in the legislature or the Metro County voted, or why people still go today. Because baseball, you don't remember, at least I don't always remember who won or who hit what home run. You remember how you feel at baseball games, right? You might remember a great dunk that you saw at a Nuggets game or see Joker going crazy one night. But when you go to a baseball game, you feel something. You remember who you were with, and you make friends with the people that are sitting around you over those 9 innings, right?
It is a different pace.
Yeah.
And so it is a pastoral game. It is a social game. It's almost like a poker game. You go for the poker game, but you go to be with your friends. Mm-hmm. And it's a different speed. And young people don't always go for it because, it's too slow. And then once they start getting into it, they go, oh, wait, there's a beauty to this. Mm-hmm. The guys on KOA radio, who I've worked with for a long time, call the game, and it's just a beautiful game to listen to as well. If you can't do that with baseball.
Soundtrack of summer.
Right, you can't do it with other sports. Why purple?
Why purple? Why purple Mountain Majesties?
Is that where?
Sure.
I mean, out of all the colors, purple.
Yes.
That was a little bit of a daring choice. I remember people go, purple? I don't want purple. But they did go with pinstripes.
Yeah. So
they tried to do something new and something old to try to get a Yankees-looking uniform instead of a crazy Houston Astros weird uniform. What most surprised you making this film?
I moved here in '96, and I haven't left because I love the people here. I feel like everyone's super friendly, and if I were to call you up and say, hey, John, let's go have coffee, you'd say, sure, Kyle, right?
And how come you never do?
Well, you never know. I waited for you to ask me here. But so I knew it was a friendly vibe out here. But the can-do spirit, the never giving up, be it everyone saying we're never going to pass a tax. People will never go for it. We shouldn't have city people pay for something, a private, venture. Oh, our owner is going to jail. Oh, we found bones in the stadium during construction. Oh, we're building in because whoever owns 20th and Blake hasn't sold. They never gave up. Of all the ups and downs all around, they never give up, right? And I think that's amazing. And then the cherry on the top of the sundae was when Eric Young, first at bat, at that first game, home game in 1993, he slid, he was a base stealer. He was like, I'm first up, I just want to get on base. The count is 3-2, 3 balls, 2 strikes. He hits a home run. I mean, it's incredible. The story was just so magical. And I think there are lots of bits that you've forgotten, and you've lived here for a long time. I mean, it was a great nostalgic look back for people who've lived here, but we also wanted to create a film that new people to Colorado would appreciate, and would be like, oh, wow, people did that to make something come true. And could you imagine what our city would be like if we didn't have that in lower downtown? Would there be a rhino? Would there be?
It changed the fabric of that area. Some for the good, some for the bad, but overwhelmingly for the good. In that that was a cool, weird warehouse area, and that's why you had tracks that went to warehouses, not roads, but actual tracks, because the big track, and you still see some of them, some of those places around there. And so it was all this light industry. It was all the warehouses. It was a weird part of town that once Coors Field came, it changed everything. You wouldn't have any of the homes, you wouldn't have any of the businesses, you wouldn't have had the nightlife, you wouldn't have had all the rest.
Well, Senator Hickenlooper we spoke with, because of course he opened the Wynn Coop in 1998 when nothing was down there. He bought it for $1 a square foot. And he was the first restaurant opening in downtown in 5 years. In 1985, more people moved out of Denver than moved in. It was,
You weren't here. I remember how dead it was. And it was a great place for a cheap date, because you go into one of the skyscrapers and you go, let's go see a beautiful sight. And you could go all the way to one of the top floors and there'd be nothing built. You could see right through the buildings, through airplanes. So you could go up and see the mountains. You're on the top floor and you just had nothing but windows, because they couldn't rent any of the buildings. No. It was the oil bust, and it was bad. We
spoke with the real estate developer for that area, who is there now, but also then, back there then. And what is now Jackson's, he could not sell. There were cottonwoods growing out of the ceiling. Nobody was there, nobody interested. He said, his name is Charlie Woolley, until there started coming things out of the ground at 20th and Blake, that's when people started buying down there, and they believed, okay, this is really happening. And I think he said that Jackson's was sold, or whatever that building was sold then, for $225,000.
Even now, you look at McGregor Square, which just popped up a year or so ago, because people want to be down there. People watch the movie or film. What's the one thing that's going to surprise them?
Surprise? I just think, okay, it was just on Thanksgiving again, on 9 News, they aired it. And my husband was tearing up at the end. He lived with me for the year that I produced and directed this and wrote this. And he's like, it makes me so proud to live here, that people made this happen, that people in Colorado, right and left, inner city, suburb, work together to get things done. And at a time when that doesn't happen as readily, well, there were times back then that was tough too, but people had a shared goal and were like, we're gonna make this happen. That maybe will surprise people in this day and age of, nonpartisanship, but it can happen. Good things happen when we work together.
Having this documentary, pulling it all together, is such a wonderful time capsule, because 30 years from now, people wouldn't know how it happened. And so you've got to feel really proud that you've got this little thing you put on the shelf, and the Rockies have this thing they put on the shelf, and 9 News has a thing, and it will be there. And you recorded it. So congratulations. Well, you must be thrilled.
And I'm more thrilled for the people who are part of it. Kathy Williams, who was the state lawmaker, Neil Macy, who was the one who kind of came up the idea when the SCFD tax passed In 88, when
It's a
we're
cultural
like,
and scientific
right,
fund.
we'll
fest.
pay for the zoos and museums through tax. He thought, what if they do this for baseball? The two of them came up with this idea. Federico Pena mentioned, I mean, there are just so many different people who work together who are volunteers for no pay. They used to go out to like softball games and, you know, whatever outdoor activity with ironing boards. They called themselves the Ironing Board Brigade, to have people sign a petition before the vote or to sign, yes, I want baseball. I mean, people gave up their time. So it was amazing that I got to tell this story. But I'm most happy for the people that we get to bring it to life for them because they did this. And I think it's wonderful that we get to capture that.
What a great project. People want to see it one more time. Where's the best place to go?
Rockies.com, Rockies YouTube, as well as 9 News Plus.
And let's make sure we got the title right.
When Colorado went Major League.
I can't believe it's 30 years.
Well, now it's past that now. Sorry.
No. Kyle, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This was wonderful.
Oh, thanks. Go Rockies.
Go Rockies. If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.